Oh, we've broken Longhorn again. Hello out there in Internetland. This is episode 15 of the 2023 season of the F1 Chat. I am your host, Phil Lamington. This week I'm actually going to do introductions for my co-hosts, unlike last week where I forgot. So sitting to my left is a man who's extremely happy that at least one of his drivers did all right, and that is JB. JB, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, that was a mini miracle, to be honest. That race went from nightmare to salvageable in the space of 44 laps.
Yeah, you were sent to the black hole.
Yes.
And
I
then
was banished to the black hole.
Banished to the black hole. And then you managed to get the 6 keys.
Yeah.
So you did all right for yourself.
That's it. That is it.
And seated to my right is a man who he was excited at halfway and then not at the end. That's Longhorn.
Thank God I did fall asleep last night because I got about 20 laps in. And although I was thoroughly entertained with Albon's efforts up to that point, and I was looking like Williams were on for points here, and I wanted to stay up, I just couldn't and I fell asleep. But we rewatched the race Monday afternoon just before we do the potty, and I'm getting excited. I keep off all the internet all day so I don't know what's happened, so I can get myself excited for the last half of the race. And I watch him train around at the back with Logan Sargent for the last few laps.
So good, Large.
Yeah,
You get banished to the black hole.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, I would be.
Yeah.
That was a race of two halves, wasn't it?
100%. Like, first half, he was driver of the day for me. Like, he was just pulling off, overtake off. The Williams looked like a rocket. I was like, oh, they've got it all right today. You know, all I was worried about was that little bit of rain we were getting. Then that didn't happen, and I thought, yeah, we're good here, and I don't know what happened, but
Then the second half, it was sponsored by Rocket. Sorry, a bit of 2020, 2021. Little acknowledgement there, little tip of the hat to the sponsors for Williams. I did actually watch a video, I think it was yesterday, I watched a video by a guy on YouTube who he was breaking down Williams' worst car. And it was the 2021.
Yep, it wasn't a great one.
Yeah, the one car
Wasn't great with the people in it either. But
the one car in Williams' history that did not score a single point.
But the one car in Williams' history that crashed with 5 laps of the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix to go.
It's still etched in history, that car.
It etched itself in other ways.
Yeah, it earned its stripes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's etched into the wall in Abu Dhabi. It's still there.
It's etched into Lewis Hamilton's repressed memories of the Nicholas Latifi's, like, the car brakes are on fire.
Sorry, as soon as you said repressed memories, all I could think was the Family Guy episode where Brian and Stewie have got their own radio show called Dingo and the Baby. And the wiener launcher, and every one of the wieners that the girl catches in her mouth, she gets like $100 or something. And she gets one in the mouth, and you hear her say, "That one felt like my dad." And it's got those pre-recorded little radio jingles. So she goes, "That one felt like my dad." Incest in the morning, suppressed memories. 97.1.
Wow.
Oh, yes.
Family Guy's got a lot to answer for.
Yeah.
The fact that the show was called Dingo and the Baby.
That's great. That's great.
Oh, we've broken Longhorn again.
We've broke him before he can even do anything.
I only just clicked to Dingo and the Baby. That's I was having a bit of a moment, and then you said it again. I'm like, that is funny.
It's like earlier I showed him a video by a guy on YouTube called Steve MRE 1989, where he gets all these MREs, he puts it out on a tray, and he sits there and goes, "Let's get this out on a tray." And then, like, in a snap cut, it's all out, and he goes, "Nice."
I love when people edit their videos like that. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, something like that's all right. But when you're watching someone stupid like Sniper Wolf, where every 2 seconds is another snap cut because their face is in a completely different position, you're like, you are so shit.
It can be overdone. Yeah, it can be overdone.
As opposed to us, I mean, we don't edit anything out.
No,
it's
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
It's raw, baby.
It's au naturel.
So's the
I mean, maybe we should, but we ain't.
Yeah.
It takes me 2 hours to put the video together already.
Yeah, ain't nobody got time for that.
I mean, last week, I'll tell you something funny. Last week, I was still up at 11 o'clock, dozing off on a Tuesday night, assembling the video.
You put in some proper effort on the show.
Yeah.
You are the team leader.
I did enjoy the ending clip to our last YouTube video of Gene Haas and Gunther Steiner talking.
It just popped in my head, and I was just like,
Yeah.
that was some quality stuff, and we didn't get a copyright strike for it. So woohoo!
Thank God for that.
Woo.
Maybe when YouTube starts paying us, we can get a video out
They
of it.
can
and actually
They're
put
going to
the
start
faces.
paying us just to demonetize us.
Yeah.
All right, well,
Here's $10. Oh, we've demonetized you.
take that back.
Yoink! That one felt like my dad.
Jesus.
Right, so we watched the Spa F1 from the Belgian F1 from Spa Francorchamps.
Best track on the calendar.
Yeah, it really is an amazing track. The odd thing about it is if you look at the track from above, it looks like a gun.
It looks like an AK.
It looks like an Uzi.
Yeah. It looks like a gun. But
It is a gun.
It
on the
is a
track.
gun
it's
track.
a gun of a track, yes.
Yeah, it's not like those Herman Tilke disaster pieces. My God. But and it always is a part of like a series of really good tracks. I mean, Hungary really is not that bad a track.
Yeah.
Hungary's all right. Yeah, it's good.
Then you get Spa,
Amazing track.
Zandvoort,
Great track.
Monza,
Amazing track.
Singapore.
Singapore's a good
Nice to look at.
And
It's nice to go to,
Yeah,
too.
and
It's nice to be there.
And a few years before that, it was
Suzuki.
Hockenheim,
Yeah.
Hungary, Spa,
Monza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so
It used to just
need
be a
Hockenheim
run.
yeah, like that's I think. Yeah, look, we keep saying get rid of one of these American tracks. Get one around one of them. Put Spa back after the summer break, and bring back Hockenheim.
Yeah, Hockenheim
There
needs
we
to
go.
come back.
There we go.
For sure.
We have successfully privatised world peace. Right. So this was a loaded weekend, though, when it came to the racing. We're going to throw it over to JB first because he has got the results of the F1 Sprint,
Yes.
complete with the F1 Sprint logo that I downloaded that should be on the video.
Is that the ice cream man?
That is the ice cream man. Oh,
Don't have any cash on me.
He might accept card.
We should come back.
Are we stopping for an ice cream?
We're stopping for an ice cream.
Well, that was a bust. We stood out on the corner for 20 minutes waiting for the ice cream truck, and he went the complete opposite way.
He literally, as we walked out the door, we seen him 100 metres away. And instead of coming towards us, he turned down the other street and then just kept slowly disappearing.
God damn GPS. Oh.
I'm so sad right now.
Just three grown men sitting out on the corner, waiting for Mr. Whippy to come back, and he never came back.
The only thing missing was Roxanne by the police playing in the background, you know. Put on the red light. Right, so we're back to the F1 Sprint report with JB.
Yeah, we are. No sherbet cone for me. Got work to do. Apparently. Alright, the F1 Sprint Race report. Lap 1, Max Verstappen starts on pole position.
And gets a fucking ice cream.
And he probably got an ice cream. Alongside Oscar Piastri. The wet track seeing the race start behind the safety car and a rolling start. The race starts with Max in the lead. Piastri dives into the pits for intermediate tyres along with 9 other cars. Lap 2, Max Verstappen pits for inters with every other car that hadn't stopped. Piastri takes the lead of the race, overtaking Max as the Red Bull leaves the pit lane. Lap 3, Fernando Alonso slides off the track at the fast sweepers, clipping the wet curbs and into the gravel, triggering a safety car and abolishing Oscar Piastri's 4-second lead. Lap 6, Max Verstappen slips past Oscar Piastri for the lead of the sprint down the Camel Straight off the safety car restart. Logan Sargent is handed a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Lewis Hamilton tries to squeeze past Sergio Perez and they touch, ripping a hole in the side pod of the Red Bull. Lap 7, Lewis gets past Sergio through turn 1. Then Sergio loses out to both Ferraris. And then Sergio Perez slides off the track with the aero damage he has suffered. Lap 9, Sergio then pits to retire from the sprint race as Lewis is handed a 5-second time penalty for causing the collision. Lap 10, George Russell sneaks the final point-scoring place off Daniel Ricciardo, moving into 8th. And lap 11, Max Verstappen wins the F1 sprint race ahead of Oscar Piastri and Pierre Gasly.
Right, so that was the F1 sprint race.
Yes.
Now we're going to hand it over to Longhorn to do the F2 results. Take it away.
It's a me with the F2 results. So starting with pole, Oliver Behrman took pole this weekend. We had a good weekend in Formula 2. We had a sprint race, feature race. We'll start with the sprint race. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. Have you ever seen a headrest fly out of a car before?
No.
Not ever.
So Jehan Daruvla was winning this race comfortably in the sprint until all of a sudden his headrest flew out the car and he had to retire.
That sucks.
How unfortunate is that? I have no idea. Like, I've never seen that before, but his headrest flew out.
Wow.
Went onto the track and he had to retire. So
The side thing.
yeah, the side thing that they take out when they have to get out. Yeah,
you have to have that there. It's a safety issue.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
yeah, pretty unfortunate for the guy because it couldn't have happened at a worse time.
I think I've seen one come loose before in like a practice session.
Yeah.
But never in a race.
No, never me either. So, yeah, it's pretty disappointing for him because, like I said, he was winning comfortably in the race.
That's
you know?
so unfortunate.
Well, it couldn't have happened in any other race when not your luck's not going your way, but it happens when you're winning. So, but to finish out the sprint race, we had Enzo Fittipaldi took out his first win in Formula 2, taking the lead on the last lap to win the race ahead of Richard Verschoor in second and Théo Pourchaire, who took third and actually went into the lead of the championship race with that result. Then we move on to the feature race. Well, we start with, here's another one, on a reconnaissance lap. Vesti tapped the brakes on a damp track and crashed out.
On the
reconnaissance lap. Yeah.
As you do.
Yeah.
As you do.
Yeah, and he was obviously the championship leader if you've been listening to the F2 reports.
All I can say is hearing that is, please, dear God, do not put him in an F1 car.
There's hasn't, yeah. Despite him leading, like, if he wins it, it's one of the most uninspiring F2 wins we've probably had, like, F2 championship wins. Like, everyone says Djokovic's year winning wasn't that great, and it still shits on over anyone who wins this year, in my opinion. But moving on to the opening lap, Iwasa tapped Dennis Hauger, spitting him out of the race. The resulting damage to Iwasa ending up killing his suspension, so they both ended up out of the race, and they're teammates. So that wasn't a great opening lap for them.
So are they signing for Alpine next year?
Well, they're both Red Bull Academy drivers.
Oh, that's a shame. They do really well at Alpine.
Yeah, yeah, they would.
They're just keeping Yuki Tsunoda's seat safe.
Yeah,
At AlphaTauri.
That's it. Then we get to lap 12 with Isaac Hadjar hitting the pit wall exit, failing to turn the corner.
That was unlucky, though, because the wheels were turned.
Yeah.
But he just went straight.
Yeah, had no temperature in his tyres, and he just whee, straight into the exit, knocked his wing off, and ruined his race.
Yeah.
Wow, and Carlos Sainz said Oscar Piastri made a rookie mistake.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, at least these guys are actually
Rookies.
rookies. Yeah.
They have an excuse, sort of.
Yeah. Then we get to lap 16, where we have Juan Manuel Carrera tapping Jake Crawford at the end of Radion to spin him out of the race and inducing a safety car as he was stuck in an unsafe position. And this is where young Aussie Jack Doohan takes advantage, and he pits under the safety car, saving him 11 seconds and coming out in behind Teo Pecheur in second. So worked out great for Jack. He hadn't had his pit stop yet.
Mm-hmm.
Then we get to lap 23 of a 25-lap race, where Jack Doohan takes the lead from Teo Pecheur down Radion Straight and into the lead of the Belgium Grand Prix. And then we get to the end of the race where Jack Doohan, that's right, you heard me, his second win in a row. He wins the Belgium GP, coming from 11th to a stonking race to storm all the way through for his second victory in a row. So another great weekend from Jack. This is what we want to see, more of this.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
moves him up to 4th in the championship. I don't think he can win it from here, but, you know, an impressive ending of the year is what he needs, I think, to have a strong year next year. So,
Yeah.
Great weekend from him and a great weekend in Formula 2. And that's the F2 report.
Yeah, well, he seems to not be leaving a lot of money on the table, so he's doing all right for
He's
himself.
pushing.
Yeah.
He's pushing.
These
Yeah,
last two races, he's looked like the best driver out of all of them. So
Is Liam Lawson still in F2?
he's in Super Formula,
Yeah, because
which he's actually in the. I think he's leading the championship there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, because apparently he's doing really great guns in Super Formula,
Yes.
and he certainly has the edge on whoever else is vying for a Red Bull seat.
Yeah, I think so. There's no one at the moment. In F2 at the moment, the only guys that are sort of impressive, there's Teo Pecheur. He's in his 3rd season. He's a Sauber Academy driver. He might get his chance just because he is a Sauber Academy driver and is the only one they've got, and they might move on Zhou Guan Yu and bring him in. But he hasn't really done, it's one of them tough things where we've been so spoilt with talent that now then when we get these guys coming through that aren't quite up to, it's not sure if they're not quite talented enough or they're just not quite as good as some of the guys that have come through, because we've been spoilt with the Norrises, Piastris, all of that. But there really isn't anyone in F2 at the moment that's really, to me, screams they need to be picked to Formula 1. So I don't know if anyone this year actually will get a seat next year.
Well, Teo Pecheur, he's been in F2 for a couple of years now, hasn't he?
3rd season, yeah.
Yeah. To me, I think if he gets brought up to F1, he'll probably turn into another sort of Nick de Vries case.
That's what it feels like. There's none of these drivers that feel like that. This might sound a bit biased. The only one that I feel like could maybe jump up and if he adapted quickly could put it together is Jack Doohan.
Yeah.
He's the only one I watch where in F2 he puts these races and then I go, that's the capabilities of an F1 driver. He's just he hasn't put it together over a whole season yet in F2. So, but there is no one there at the moment that's done that. There's no one in F2 doing that, putting together an entire season or putting together the kind of talent that you want to see out of these guys that you go, jump him in an F1 car, can he race?
He seems like one of the few drivers that's got momentum that he could take into an F1 season.
Yeah,
even though
he
he's a
definitely
rookie, he's finishing 4th in he's currently 4th in the F2 championship.
Yep.
But if you put him in an F1 car next year, he would still have upward trajectory momentum, whereas Teo Pecheur, Deruvula, all those guys, they've sort of plateaued.
Yes, they have. They're in their 3rd years where, this is do or die kind of for them. You're only allowed to race 3 years in F2, I believe.
Yeah.
So this is their last year, essentially. And if you're not by year 3 doing what Dragovic did, which that was the knock on him, is it took him 3 years. But at least his 3rd year he dominated.
Yeah.
None of these guys are dominating. We've had multiple winners, which makes it exciting. But, usually you want to be dominating the formulas until you step up. And no one is in F2. But, yeah, the only guy that's, still young in his career in Formula 2 and showing a bit, not as consistent, is probably Jack Doohan. So, yeah, look, I hope he gets in. He's an Alpine reserve driver. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Is Ocon still contracted for next year?
Yes.
Isn't he contracted for 15 more years or something?
Yeah, well, there's 7 drivers that have contracts coming up at the end of this year in F1.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting driver market because, like I said, there's no real one exciting coming through that's like, oh, he's got definitely going to be in for any of those seats.
The strange thing is, like, Lewis Hamilton is one of them. So it's Lewis Hamilton, Yuki Tsunoda, Zhou Guanyu, Daniel Ricciardo, Logan Sargent, Alex Albon, and oh god, who was the last one? It was
Bottas?
No, Bottas is signed with Sauber until the end of 2025.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, he signed a nice little contract. But Zhou Guanyu, his one is up at the end of this year. Yuki Tsunoda's up. Both the Sogan Largent.
He'll go. Sogan Largent, I think he'll be moved on.
From the report I read towards the end of this race, I was reading a report about it. They're pretty sure that Yuki Tsunoda is going to retain his seat.
Yeah, I think he will.
Zhou Guanyu is going to retain his seat. Sogan Largent and Alex Albon are going to retain their seats.
Albon for sure. Like, yeah, no question there.
Daniel Ricciardo is going to retain his seat. So
That's what I mean. There's just no talent coming through that warrants kicking any of these guys out, even though some of them haven't been amazing. Like, if Zhou Guanyu stays, it's not because of really any of his performances, because there's no one under him doing any better.
I think the only people who can be a real threat to these seats are guys from IndyCar, like Colton Herta and Pato O'Ward.
Yep.
You know, or Scotty McLaughlin. I think, honestly, as good as Pato O'Ward or who was the other guy? Colton Herta are. I think Scotty McLaughlin is the hot property in IndyCar at the moment. He's the guy who's got the upward trajectory. I think Colton Herta and Pato O'Ward have, again, like, plateaued out.
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be good to see Scotty in F1, but I don't know. He seems to like it in America.
Yeah.
I don't think he's in any hurry to leave.
But, I mean, if someone slid an F1 contract in front of him and said, hey, do you want to drive in F1? You'd be an idiot to turn it down.
Or even a test.
Yeah, I mean, you to have that on your resume to say, I drove one season in F1. It might have been a complete abysmal failure. But to have that on that resume and say, I drove in F1.
I've been an F1 driver, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I can say that I was on the same level of sport as Jack Brabham, Bruce McLaren, Alan Jones, Mark Webber.
Unfortunately,
Danny Rick.
Sogan Largent can say that.
There's a lot of drivers that can say that.
Yeah, that's right. That's true.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Nikita Mazepin can say that.
Yep. Latifi.
Yeah. But unlike those guys, though, Scotty McLaughlin does have talent.
Yes.
Correct.
He does.
Yes.
So.
And that's the problem with Formula 2 at the moment. There's just a lot of guys. There's not a lot of extreme talent that's like,
Well,
gosh, get this guy
like,
in. It's just a bunch of guys at the moment.
It's like Arthur Leclerc.
Yeah.
He's just
a guy.
milling about,
Yeah.
living off his brother's name.
There's a lot of guys in Formula 2 that are just milling about at the moment. Like I said, is that Mr. Whippy?
That's Mr. Whippy.
Mr. Whippy's back. We're going to have to pause again, aren't we?
Yeah, we
Sherbert cones!
And we're back after having an ice cream.
We did it.
Delicious.
We did it.
3 grown men chasing an ice cream truck down the street, but
Yeah, he just ignored us and kept going. We had
Well,
to run
he
half
pulled
the
up,
street.
And then was like, nah, give it. And just kept going. And I was like, no! Monica! No!
thank God old mate down the street flagged him down.
Yeah.
He engaged Max Verstappen mode.
Do. Max, what's happened? Do.
Max power. Right.
Oh my God. What an odyssey this adventure's been.
Where were we?
We're
F1 report.
Yep, it's time for the F1 reports, JB. Get it over the fucking done with.
All right. The 2023 MSC Cruisers Belgian Grand Prix.
Another sponsor plug. I like it.
Fucking sharps. I also like boats.
We're getting free flights, 3 cruises.
And
You know
free
we
oil.
have to declare this shit when it goes up on YouTube. If there's any sponsorship, we got to declare it.
Oh, damn it.
That's fine. You can declare it. I won't break your trophy, I promise. Lap 1.
You got super glue.
Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position alongside Sergio Perez. Now, it should be noted there are 2 separate qualifying sessions, one for the sprint race and one for the Grand Prix, so that's why there's 2 different lineups. Charles Leclerc holds off Sergio Perez initially. Oscar Piastri is hit on the inside of turn 1 after being squeezed by Carlos Sainz. Sergio Perez takes the lead of the Grand Prix down the Camel Straight. Lap 2. Alex Albon blasts past Lance Stroll for 9th. Oscar Piastri pulls off the track at the back of the track, retiring from the race. Lap 3. Ferrari tell Carlos Sainz he'll be suffering 5% aero loss from the damage he has incurred. Fernando Alonso passes Carlos the following lap. Lap 5, Lance Stroll dive bombs Lando Norris for 10th. George Russell passes him the next lap as the McLaren seems to be carrying too much downforce in anticipation for a wet Grand Prix that didn't eventuate. Lap 6, Lando Norris pits for hard tyres. Max Verstappen passes Lewis Hamilton for 3rd. Lap 7, Carlos Sainz is passed by George Russell for 9th. Lap 8, Carlos pits for mediums, Ferrari opting to keep him running for now. Lando Norris is mugged down the Camel Straight by Ocon and Albon. Lap 9, Max Verstappen slips past Charles Leclerc into 2nd place. Down the Camel Straight, lap 10, Lando is passed by Daniel Ricciardo with the high downforce setting on the car, graining the tyres faster and along with having terrible straight line speed. It is later revealed that Lando was suffering with a steering issue that was later rectified. Lap 13, Lewis Hamilton pits for mediums. Sergio Perez pits for mediums and out of the lead of the race. Lap 14, Max Verstappen pits for medium tyres, handing the lead back to Sergio. Lap 16, Fernando Alonso dive bombs George Russell for 6th. Lap 17, Max Verstappen switched past Sergio Perez and into the lead of the Grand Prix down the Camel Straight with a neat move. George Russell gets past Lance Stroll for 6th place into Le Com. Lap 21, rain is falling. Max Verstappen nearly has an airplane crash going up Eau Rouge and into Radion as his rear twitches halfway up the turn. Lap 23, Lando Norris passes Logan Sargent as the conditions begin to favour his setup. George Russell pits for soft tyres. Lap 25, Carlos Sainz is finally retired from the race with his damaged side pod. Lap 30, Max Verstappen pits for another set of soft tyres and sets off back into the lead of the race. Lap 33, Pierre Gasly gets past Alex Albon for 11th. Lap 34, Red Bull tell Max Verstappen to take it easy on the soft tyres. Max quips he could go do an extra pit stop, but his engineer tells him no. Lap 39, Esteban Ocon squeezes around the outside of Yuki Tsunoda into Le Com with a brave move. Lap 42, Alex Albon pulls off a stunning move around the outside of Blanchimont on Nico Hulkenberg. And lap 44, Max Verstappen wins the Belgian Grand Prix from teammate Sergio Perez and Ferrari's Charles Leclerc. Lewis Hamilton gets the fastest lap. Max Verstappen gets driver of the day.
And Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes comes 4th. Fernando Alonso for Aston Martin comes 5th. George Russell manages to make it up to 6th. Because at one point he was coming almost dead last. Lando Norris for McLaren, he was 7th. He was in the same boat.
He was screwed at the start of this race. He was too much downforce eating into the tyres, and he had a steering issue, so he was down. He was last of the runners for a bit, and then they rectified the steering issue, and they did set up a little bit of a wing tweak, a front wing tweak, I think, on the car on the way out of the pit stop, and it seemed to hold its own from there, because he got on the softs early. I think he did like 23 laps on them,
Yeah.
which is more than anyone else. So, yeah.
In 8th place was Esteban Ocon for the Alpine. Ninth was Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, and rounding out the top 10 was Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. So, what did you guys think of the race?
It was good.
Yeah.
There's plenty of overtaking.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great race.
Plenty of like really good wheel-to-wheel battles and overtakes around the outside of corners, on the inside of corners, and
Yeah, it was so refreshing to watch a race where obviously it's the longest lap on the calendar as well. There's so many different places guys could take overtakes up and take overtakes, and it was just so refreshing. It was always different in a sense.
yeah,
It was not just like, oh, okay, they've overtaken at the end of the DRS zone on the straight. You know,
Yeah.
like
into turn one, into turn one,
into turn one. You know, I mean, that was Hungary last week. You know, and
Yeah,
it was just nice to be at a track where guys were overtaking at way different, all kinds of different places.
Other than the Red Bulls, like the DRS wasn't overpowering.
Yeah.
I mean, the Red Bulls were overpowering, but the DRS wasn't overpowering. Like, you could have DRS, get to the end of the straight, and still not get the overtake done.
It just feels like as well, like this lap has so many areas you can make up time. Like, so much of the lap, even if you get overtaken, you're not done. Like, you can make that back up on the rest of that lap.
if your car's carrying more downforce than everyone else, that middle sector is your playground.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the problem Lando and Oscar had. In the rain, it worked for Oscar in the sprint race. He got P2 because he was carrying more downforce in the rain. He was able to, like, middle sector was his playground.
Yeah.
And Lando was the same. He was set up for a wet race, but thankfully was able to pull off a 7th, which in itself is a mini miracle.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
I'm stoked with that.
Yeah, because no way I've seen them getting points.
No, we were screwed. We were
First half,
absolutely screwed. But
Well, it was... We thought that Norris, and for a time there, I thought Russell wasn't going to get points, and I thought Albon was.
Yeah, I thought Albon would
that
finish roughly
first
when
half
Norris
of the
was.
race, man,
Yeah.
those Williams were on fire.
Yeah.
Albon was just blinding through everyone. He
Even-
did that overtake where he overtook, was it Ocon and someone else? He did the Mika Hakkinen overtake.
Yeah, he
Around
overtook
the outside.
Ocon on the outside and Norris in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was just flying through cars, and I was just like, he has to be on for points in this. Like, we've got the setup right, we've got the cars quick in a straight line. It like suits this track, and I just don't know what happened.
I'd love to
us.
ask him what happened. I'm going to have to watch the post race and see what happened because
Yeah.
I think it was tyre dag because of being behind so many cars for so long. Sure, he was,
Overtaking.
sure he was engaging Mazda zoom mode, but it still eats away at your tyres. That's what James Vowles was saying.
Yeah, and that we did. We ate through our tyres, and we were one of the cars that had 3 pit stops instead of 2. A lot of cars only ended up on the 2 pit stops, where we ended up on the 3. So I think that killed us and put us so far behind. But just wonder if that was car related or like again, was it being in traffic and pushing? Was he pushing so hard that he burnt the tyres out, and that's why he looked so good for the
I
first,
could only assume so.
Yeah, like, is that
I
why he
could
looked so
only
good
assume
for
so.
the 3/4 of the race? Because he was just pushing.
But
And maybe we expected everyone else to do the same, and a lot of other teams sort of held up and went, let's stick to the 2, the 2 pit stops.
But even Sogan Largent, like he for a long period there was actually doing really well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But like, Williams just looked on this weekend. I even thought Sargent would be a sneaky chance maybe for the 10th spot with the way the car was going. But after his first pit stop, that went out the window.
But it's the first time in a very long time that I've heard commentators talking about a car having the wrong setup when it comes to the McLaren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that very rarely happens nowadays because it's all the telemetry data and the simulations and everything. Back in the 90s, like, you'd hear it all the time, like, oh, he's going backwards because he's got his car set up the wrong way.
And it was I enjoyed that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it was wet all weekend, they had no dry running.
Yeah.
It kind of gave us that. A lot of teams didn't have all the data. And I enjoyed that. I kind of want that, to be fair. I wish we could have that for every team. Like, no one has the perfect all data where we all enter the same dip, and we all have the same, set up, the same everything else, and it just comes down to, again, the performance of the car.
Maybe if they ban that type of thing, that might actually take a whole bunch of the cost cap out.
It adds so much more strategy.
Yeah.
So much more to think about, and it throws more up. Like I said, this race was
There was so
tailored to
much more
us.
strategy. There was a point where literally half the field were on medium tyres, and the other half the field were on softs.
Yeah, and no one touched the hards.
And that happened in the F2 feature race as well.
Mm.
Half the field were on wet tyres, half the field were on slicks.
Yeah.
And it hit the crossover point. They only did 11 laps, but it hit the crossover. I think they did 15 laps, actually. And it hit that crossover point where the wet tyre runners, the track dried up. And the wet tyre runners were struggling, and the slick guys were coming through. Whereas at the start of the race, the wet tyres were like way out in front. There was like a 15-second gap.
Yeah.
And this was like, okay, who can look after their tyres the best?
Yep.
Lando put the softs on right before it started raining and kept them on for the whole rest of the race.
Yeah.
And he finished 7th, and that's incredible.
Yeah, it was honestly a credible recovery. And but I really enjoyed that throwing things up that, you know, McLaren got it wrong. And it was great that they were able to recover from that and come back.
Yeah.
And I just wish there was more of that every race where, I know, even the Red Bull got it wrong. Maybe that drops them back because they get their setup quite wrong because they don't have the perfect data. Like,
Yeah.
It's always been my complaint with Formula 1 these days. It's so streamlined. We've taken so much out. And we think, just having a couple of tyre compounds is going to throw up all this strategy. And the battery, we've got to recharge the... Doesn't interest anyone. You've lost speed because you've got to recharge the battery, so now Max can overtake you even quicker.
We've taken so much of the human element out of it.
We don't refuel anymore. Like, there's so many things that if you threw it back in, it would just make these races so much more exciting. It would throw so much more into the race that could go wrong for anyone, that it could literally throw any team into any position at any time. You know, like, it could throw an AlphaTauri onto a podium because half the grid gets something wrong.
Yeah.
And they get it right. Whereas if the way we have it, it's like there's no way to close that gap.
Yeah.
There's no way to close it when we all get all the data you need. And you have so much, data that you can literally code what the race is going to do before it starts.
Yeah.
And that even applies to the power units themselves. Like, they've got so many computer components inside them that the engineers can know exactly what's going wrong in the car. I think we need to take all of that crap out and bring it back to very much the 80s and the 90s, where if an engine blew, mechanics had to go in and have a look at it like your ordinary mechanic that works at the mechanic shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got so much technological stuff in there. You know, it takes them half an hour to actually fire up a power unit because they have to boot the computer inside the engine half an hour before they actually fire up the engine.
That's crazy.
That's
unreal,
ridiculous.
Yeah.
It should just be turn the key, boom, boom, off you go.
Yeah.
You know? And I firmly agree about bringing back refueling and a pit stop because you halve the fuel tank, you get faster running, you get more strategy options, more human element involved in it.
Yeah.
You know, it's pit stops have just become swap tyres, off you go.
Well, they're already downsizing the size of the tanks in 26. It's going to be 70 kilos of fuel instead of 100.
Yeah, but they're still going to bring back refueling.
Yeah. You can start with 40 litres of fuel, 40 kilos. Yeah, they need to. They need
to throw some other... Like I
they
said,
need something. They need a variable.
To give these guys more shot to take risks, to make it, like, places up. Just like I said, this race was excellent because... And this race had no incidents other than Piastri and Sainz at the start. It was just pure racing.
Yeah.
But it was so many different strategies going on. It literally was a tale of two halves. Like,
different strategies, different setups. There were a few cars running wet setups.
Yep.
Thinking it was going to rain.
But the other thing was, there was so much human element in it with the drivers having to do actual overtakes on the track. Even Max had to do a couple of overtakes.
Even Max almost had an airplane crash up Radeon.
Yeah.
Like, twitched in the middle of the corner at the bump. And that was top speed.
Yeah.
He would have been in the wall.
And for most of the race, he'd been lifting off through that corner.
Yeah.
You know, which I don't blame him.
Yeah, I don't blame him either.
Yeah, because especially it was raining at that point, wasn't
it?
Yeah.
Right, so we're going to get to my key drivers. And so, just so set the record straight, there's no Max Verstappen and there's no Perez.
Yeah, Max Verstappen's a key driver every race because
he wins.
He's a superstar.
Yeah, he is.
But I did put Charles Leclerc in.
He had a good weekend.
He had a good weekend.
Took pole.
Yeah, well, Max took pole,
Sorry, yeah. Well,
and then he got a penalty for changing his gearbox.
change.
Yeah.
So it starts 6.
But in an underpowered compared to the Red Bull Ferrari that eats its tyres, and he was underfueled. He had to fuel save for the last 10 laps or something. He had to fuel save.
Yeah, right.
Because they didn't do proper simulation runs during FP1.
Because it was pissing rain, yeah.
Yeah, so they didn't know.
That was another variable.
Yeah.
How much fuel do you put in?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he had to fuel save for a long period there. That was when Hamilton was catching him, and then Hamilton all of a sudden peeled off and said, I want the fastest lap.
Mm.
So he breathed a sigh of relief, like, oh, Christ, well,
Thank God.
bullet dodged.
Yeah.
You know, because he would have been a sitting duck. But, no, Charles Leclerc
Did Lewis Hamilton, rob himself?
No.
Instead of getting the podium.
I think he was still a couple of seconds behind when he pitted.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if he would have
He
made
was
that up.
He was 4 seconds behind.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, maybe that makes
Yeah.
more sense.
Yeah.
It's like Lewis would have got, you got an extra point for finishing 4th, but you could have got 5 extra points for finishing 3rd.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that good.
Yeah, I know. My next key driver was actually Alex Albon.
Yeah, he was
Other than him ending the race in the bottom half of the
points.
he didn't get any points. For the longest time, he was in there. He was in there fighting, and he made that Williams look amazing.
He really did. He made it look incredible. It was flying. It was, it was one of the best drives I'd have watched that first half.
He deserved points.
He did. That's what was disappointing. I mean, he was even overtaking cars at the end.
Yeah.
Like, he still come from 17th up to 15th, 14th in the last 3 or 4 laps or whatever. Like, it's just kind of sad that they didn't, whatever went wrong, didn't let him end up in the points, because he definitely put in a drive worthy of them. Yeah. So,
how do you feel, JB?
Yuki Tsunoda. Yuki Tsunoda, if you don't have him on your list.
No, I didn't.
Man, he drove the wheels off that AlphaTauri.
He was up there with Alex.
Yuki Tsunoda dragged that AlphaTauri.
Yep.
He was following. He was following everybody. He followed Esteban Ocon. Like those two were like jetting up the grid together. Like, I think it was a great drive from Yuki.
Yeah, it was.
Ocon is on my list.
Yeah,
I thought he drove really well.
He drove a very good race.
It was a very under the radar sort of race.
Yeah,
for him.
Yeah, with Alpine needed that result too.
My next driver on the list was George Russell. Like, to fight his way through the grid, because by the end of the first lap, he was towards the back end of the grid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out what happened, because, like, the first half of the race was Yuki Tsunoda and Alex Albon for me. They were the guys that were, like, running in that back half of the top 10 that I was like, these guys are on for points. They are on. They were getting everything right. And Norris and Russell were the ones that were in the bottom half of the point, like, the bottom half, not in the points, and I thought it hasn't worked out for them today. And then somehow they just completely switched and ended up where they've ended up. I mean, Tsunoda still fell in the points, but we talk about Albon fell out. But what happened? Did everyone else just pit and they made their tyres last longer? Or
yeah, Lando made his tyres last.
Well, Lando was
laps.
getting front wing adjustments on every pit stop so that he could
Slowly,
claw back some of the proper setup. And he's my final driver on my list. Like, Lando Norris came from the first half of the race. He was the back end of the horse. You know?
Well, what did he start on the grid? He started.
He started.
I think he started seventh.
Yeah. And he just fell. He was just falling.
Yeah, him and Russell started 7th and 8th, and then they fell because of the accident.
Yeah.
Everyone
They
else.
both got held up by Oscar.
Yeah.
Going up Eau Rouge, because Oscar was doing about 20 km an hour.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't turn the car. And then Lando had too much drag on the car.
Yeah.
And in turn was just... and he had the steering issue, which was graining his tyres, which is why he had that super early stop for hards.
Right.
And then they fixed the steering issue, and then they just gradually played with his front wing settings until the car felt all right, and he got 7th somehow.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll absolutely take it.
I felt insanely bad for Oscar Piastri.
He would have been on for a good,
You know,
good day.
he didn't do anything wrong. There was a gap, and also going into that corner on the first stanza.
Oh, yeah.
Every year, I mean, go all the way back to 1998 when it was absolutely urinating down water, and you had half a million pounds worth of damage or something. Like, it was ridiculous because everyone just clashed in the first corner. And or Roman Grosjean launching himself.
Yep.
You know.
Oh, yeah. Lap 1 into La Source is probably the most dangerous corner on the calendar.
And
I don't think there's many more dangerous besides maybe turn 1 at Albert Park.
Or the chicane, the first chicane at Monza.
Yeah, that's always a bit tricky too.
Yeah.
Coming around.
Or turn 1 at Hungary.
Yeah. In the rain, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, in sheer danger, it's La Source.
Oh, yeah.
Because if it's dry, there's going to be an accident. If it's wet, there's going to be an accident. Yeah.
But, like Piastri, he got boxed in. What really triggered it was Perez cutting across in front of Hamilton, and then Hamilton trying to take the inside. Sainz getting on the brakes early and locking up and tried to avoid Hamilton, and he just boxed Piastri in.
Yeah, he just
between him and the wall.
Yeah, I think the judges, the stewards were right to say it was a racing incident.
It was. It was desperately unlucky for everyone.
It was, but Sainz's comments was moronic.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Fault.
Yeah, last episode we debuted the Brain Dead Award. This week's Brain Dead Award is not because of what he did, but what he said afterwards, and that's Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
By saying, it's a rookie mistake and he shouldn't have been there, da-da-da-da-da. A great driver named Ayrton Senna once said, if there's a gap and you don't go for it, you're not a race driver.
Yes.
That's fairly accurate quote.
That is the accurate quote.
That is the accurate quote. And I don't know if you know this, Carlos Sainz, but Oscar Piastri is a racer. He is a race driver.
Very good one, too.
And
that's the exact quote Lewis Hamilton used when he put the hole in Sergio's side pod.
In the sprint.
In the sprint. He's like, Ayrton said, if the gap doesn't exist, if the gap exists and you don't go for it, you're no longer a racing driver.
Yeah.
That was Lewis's exact quote. Exact thing he said too. He's like, if it's not there, if it's there and you don't try, what's the point?
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Carlos, but sitting there blaming Piastri is the most idiotic thing I've ever
It'll be
heard.
good for Piastri though. You needed to, he'll take lessons from it.
But I think McLaren will do really well at Zandvoort and Monza. I think they'll really.
I think they will. I think if you bring the high downforce setup, you can leave the setup on Norris's car now because Zandvoort's a very twisty track.
Yeah.
And then Monza, McLaren's always been good in a straight line.
Whereas I honestly think the Ferraris are going to be a sitting duck at Monza. Yeah, for some reason I just don't think they've got the straight line. Now, before we get into the news, I kind of want to address something. I haven't told you guys about this. So I think it was Thursday or Friday, and the Ferrari Facebook page put up a post, about boosting up the weekend. Like, yay, it's the Spa F1. And you read all the comments and everyone's like, hey, could you guys actually win for a change? Or sack your strategy department? Or we're sick of this shit. Like, give us a car that actually wins and give us drivers who don't carry on like turkeys or whatever. And typically, I'd just ignore it or whatever. But for some reason, I felt compelled to actually say something. So I got on there and actually said, this might be going against the grain, but we sit here and we slag off the team and say they should do better or sack the strategy department or whatever. But there are guys and girls that work at Maranello tirelessly to try and make these cars better. Yeah. As well as Frederic Vasseur, Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz, who are trying their best to make these cars better. And I think we need to give them more credit for what they're doing. The fact that they're showing up and have a car that works somewhat properly, as opposed to sitting there saying it's a shit box and it's a this and that. Sure, yeah, there's room for improvement, but give them time.
Yeah.
Give them time to improve it or to work on next year's car and make it better.
Yeah.
And I said it also applies to teams like Williams. I want to see Williams back up the front. Yeah, they're a legacy team, much like McLaren, Ferrari. Want to see them back up the front too. So give them time to be able to do it. You know, when we come back, when we hit, we will hit hard. And I had about 5 people sit there and say, thank you for being a ray of positivity about this.
Yeah.
Instead of just railing on the team. And I did say, look, I think they do need to change up their strategy department. But I think that, we've got to give Frederick Vasseur a bit of time. Because, I mean, he came into the team, November, December? Yeah, the car was already being developed under Matteo Binotto. And so he's inherited it. Next year's car is going to be a complete Fred Vasseur project.
Yeah.
You know,
He's seen it from start to where it's at.
From go to woe.
Yeah.
And so I think the Ferrari fanboys sort of need to...
I think it's just social media, man. I think everything on social media is highly strung towards negativity. It's what the world feeds off on the internet.
Yeah,
and
I think
I was
everyone
guilty.
needs
I
to-
was guilty for it, man.
Yeah.
When McLaren launched the Triple Crown livery on Le Mans weekend, Indy weekend, Monaco weekend, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's celebrate the Triple Crown by running around in 16th and 17th, which wasn't too far from the truth. Actually, I think Lando might have got some points in Monaco. I was guilty of slagging off the team too, but I was also guilty of praising the team on Twitter openly after Silverstone and after Hungary, when I said I got to give credit to the McLaren team for taking this year's car and turning it into a weapon.
Yeah.
Because the MCL 60 was bound for the scrap heap after the first 5 races. Like, we started Bahrain with a DNF in the 17th. We had 2 consecutive podiums. And who knows if Oscar had stayed in this race. If the setup had gone the right way, I reckon we would have been close for another podium at Spa as well. I mean, technically, we got his podium. We got second in the sprint race.
I think the problem is like with social media, like, see, coming from guys like you, like us here, we kind of can criticise to a point. It don't have to be nasty, but I feel like we're entitled to criticise because we put the time and energy into caring about this stuff, and we'll give the positivity when it's there, and we'll give, like, I think you're allowed to have that as a fan when you're a true fan and you put time and you like all the stuff into it.
Absolutely.
The problem with the internet is there's a lot of people that don't.
Yeah.
But can still they still throw a voice out, feel like they got a voice.
Oh,
so
mate.
they'll throw a criticism out, or they'll just throw something, a blow away comment, and then get on with their life, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They're not they're not doing podcasts, they're not, watching Formula One, staying up. They're not putting the time into, like, they're not doing that. They're just like, oh, my team's shit, I'll just throw something out.
Yeah.
And that's what the internet is full of.
It's just a broad thing in general. Like,
it's for everything. Every sport,
it's like if you go and play Grand Theft Auto 5 online, and you always get some idiot in that turbo jetpack
bike
thingy.
Yeah.
You could be doing a mission, they just blow you up for the sake of screwing with you because they think it's funny.
Yeah.
Because everyone nowadays is a keyboard warrior.
Everyone else has sad lives, and that's how they get their...
There's
their
no
little-
repercussions, man.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, they sit there and say whatever they want because
You
they
wouldn't
know.
say it to their face, but
You
you
can get punched in the face.
Yeah, well, it's very much like the ending of Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, where they find all these bad reviews about their movie or whatever, and so they fly to each person's place and beat the crap out of them for giving them a bad review. Like, they got paid millions of dollars for the rights to this movie, and they went, you know what, we're going to spend this money to go and see every one of these fuckers and tell them exactly how we feel and beat the shit out of them. And half of them are like 15-year-old kids hiding in their mum's basement.
Yeah.
And
So, I mean, you don't even know who is who on the internet. It could even be bots for all we know. Like, that's a real
Some
thing.
of them are. Some
Yeah.
of them are legitimate AI,
So,
especially on Twitter.
yeah. I think you just got to try and ignore most of the negativity and try and, look into people that write out the fair comments.
Yeah.
Where you can tell they've actually got a thought or an interest or whatever it is.
You're allowed to be frustrated,
Yeah.
yeah,
but you don't have to be,
Yeah,
telling them to go jump off a bridge.
I think
Yes,
a lot of these people sit there and say, "Oh, Ferrari, you need to be doing better. Your shit, rah 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 rah." If you send them to Maranello and said, "Right, you show me what I don't know,"
Yeah.
they'd sit there and say, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing." And then you got the excuse to sit there and say, "Well, shut the blue hell up."
It's like Giampiero Lambassi. After Max went after him at qualifying or whatever, and he's like, "All right, well, you come sit here and you can do the run sheet for the next session."
Yeah, you do the fuels.
You can do the fuels, the tires, and the run seat for the next session.
Yeah, we'll do it your way.
Yeah, we'll do it your way. You come in here and show me what to do then.
Yeah.
And
Max was like, sorry.
Yeah, to Max's credit, he actually said in the post-race interview, he's like, I want to apologise to my engineer because I acted like an absolute spoilt brat.
Yeah.
He said that, did he?
Yeah, he came
Good
out.
on him. Good on him. Yeah.
So
Because it was quite heated this weekend. It was quite funny at times, them going back and forth with each other. You could sense there was a little bit of,
and
animosity going on at the time.
He got on the radio and he's like, "Yep, we did it, and sorry about acting like a brat." And his
Giampiero Lambassi,
that guy,
his engineer,
got on there and said, "Yeah, we're slowly getting used to it."
Yeah.
It was a tricky weekend, despite the fact that he skated off into the distance.
I've no idea what he was frustrated about. He won both races
because he wanted to. He's a winner.
It's the execution. That's his thing. Like, that's what he said to me. He said that because they said, "Oh, you still through, Max." He's like, "Yeah, but the execution wasn't right."
Yeah,
because he came.
He did almost miss Q3.
Yeah, that's his point. Like, he has a car that is capable of so much more, and he almost got eliminated.
He chases perfection.
Yeah,
and that's why he's the number one.
Well, it's that line from that movie, The Replacements. I think I said it last year during State of Origin. Winners want the ball.
Yeah.
He wants the ball.
Winners
want the ball.
And he's also so dedicated to his craft, he doesn't make mistakes. So it's almost like he can, in a sense, push the team in a way of, we need to be perfect because he's perfect himself. You know what I mean? Like, he's not making mistakes and expecting perfection from everything else. He's like, I'm perfect. I'm doing everything right. I want to expect that out of my team too.
Yeah. It's fair.
There's a healthier way to go about it, which I'm sure they're figuring out, but that's just what happens when you're perfect.
Far from the first driver to act like that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's
go down the list of every F1 champion. Yeah. They've all acted like that at some point.
That's right, yeah.
It's like, I'm driving at this level, the car's at this level, we're at this level.
Yeah.
I need you to be at this level so I can stay at this level so we can stay at this level.
Yeah. That's what champions do.
Right, speaking of champions and staying on this level, it's time for the news. And the first news, this was breaking on, Saturday, our time?
Yeah, this happened very quickly.
Otmar Szfanauers has been booted from Alpine.
Yeah. I wouldn't say speaking of champions about Otmar.
No. No.
Speaking of on the way out.
Yeah, well, he finished up this weekend and then he was out.
Which was funny because he was on Beyond the Grid podcast this week, talking about Alpine and taking them forward. And now, a week later, he's not taking them
Obviously, he didn't get the memo.
Yeah, well, it was...
poorly timed interview.
Yeah. It was a Renault boss, Laurent Rossi, that booted him. Because he said a couple of months ago, if I don't see improvement, heads are going to roll. And he wasn't fucking about.
No.
It wasn't like Gunther Steiner saying, Gene Haas is not fucking ready about it, fucking happy about spending
not
money.
Not going to be happy,
Yeah, this guy just went, well, you know what? You're a problem. You're gone.
I'll be honest. Like, I got the vibe from Otmar that he was just sort of promoting mediocrity. Like,
yeah,
he didn't feel like a guy that was pushing for shit, like pushing them up.
He was there for a paycheck.
That's what it really did feel like with him. He was just like, Aston Martin was getting stressful because Daddy Stroll expects the best because that's what he's aiming for. So he kind of lost that seat. Yeah. And that turned out to be a great decision because since he left, they shot up.
Yeah.
And then he's come to Alpine and they've kind of been worse than they were last year.
Look at the mistakes he's made. I mean, there was the whole Oscar Piastri saga.
Yeah, bottle all of that.
Well, let's not get him to sign a proper hard copy contract and then sit there and slag him off in the media because he signed a hard copy contract with McLaren because you didn't sign a hard copy contract with him.
Yeah.
Because you were too focused to keep Fernando Alonso.
Yeah. Who you also lost.
Who didn't want to stay with you.
Yeah.
And I mean, the car is nothing spectacular.
No, it's really not.
It hasn't improved on last year, that's for sure.
And he just comes across as a used car salesman.
Yes, he just comes across as, like you said, picking up a paycheck.
Not even that. Not even that. He comes across as an American politician. That's what it is. He's
says the right things.
Yeah.
But then the actions don't.
Yeah,
back it
he
up.
says the right words to retain his job, which he hasn't done. He's been voted out by his constituents.
Yeah.
The tribe has spoken.
Yeah, the tribe has spoken.
Please
It's time
extinguish
to-
your flame and
Yeah,
walk
it's
to
time
the-
to leave the island.
walk to the boat, mate.
Okay? And he didn't have an individual immunity idol, so he can jog on.
Yeah.
You know, he brought zero value to this team.
100%. 100%.
So
He didn't push this team one bit.
Yeah, no.
And they needed someone to go in and push them further up.
Everything's
They want-
gone backwards. And the person that pushed them further up was Fernando Alonso,
Yeah.
Yeah.
of all people.
Yeah.
And now he's gone.
Yeah.
And now the team's suffering for it.
So,
Although Pierre Gasly did get a podium in the
In
sprint
the
race.
sprint. He did, yeah.
but yeah, sorry Otmar, but bon voyage, mate.
Yeah, they're not going to miss him.
No. Also, Alan Permain also got the boot from Alpine. Now, Alan Permain, he'd been in the team since Schumacher in the Benetton days. I think he was the sporting director. He'd worked his way up to sporting director
He's
in
been
the
there
team.
for a long, long time.
And his head got lopped off by Laurent Rossi as well. I keep wanting to say Francis Rossi, but Francis Rossi is a guitarist in Status Quo. Laurent Rossi lopped his head off as well.
Wow, no one's safe.
Yeah, he wasn't fucking about.
No.
You know, I think Permain probably did have value to the team, being a sporting director and being part of the entire process of the team.
Mm.
But you know, if you're gonna make what John Taffer says, which is a landmark firing, there's your landmark firing.
Yeah, that's huge.
That sends a message to the entire team. Like, I'm not fucking about.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I
no
think
one's safe.
the guy Rossi's had enough of mediocrity, and I've said it in previous episodes in the Drive to Survive series. I know that's like a like a documentary sort of thing, but like there was just a vibe you got from that team where it was like you've got Red Bull that's like Max Verstappen's mad because even though he got through, it wasn't perfect, and then you got a team like Alpine who would just feel like, well, we'll be back next week. Do you know what I mean? Like the vibe is like that. They're like, well, we'll get it next week. You know,
They were happy.
there's always more time. Where like Red Bull's like on the pulse, like we are champions, everything's perfect, like everything in the organisation. Whereas in Alpine felt a bit like, what are we having for lunch today?
Yeah,
They're more cared about the catering and it's like
It felt like it was a country club.
yes, and Otmar definitely promoted that. Like he had no
drive.
That's right. And you need someone to go on and be like, right, I'm going to make moves. This needs to be better. If you're not up to the par, you need to go. Like, I feel like that's where they've come to. Like, hey, if we actually want to go up, we need to be doing that as an organisation.
Yeah,
And Otmar wasn't the man to push that.
Well, so they're bringing in a couple of Renault guys as temporary team principal and sporting director. But there are rumours swirling around that Otmar Szfanauers' replacement is going to be Matteo Binotto, which I think that's a pretty good decision.
Yeah, I like Matteo Binotto.
I think particularly if you let him work on that engine, because he's an engine guy. He started at Ferrari as a mechanic and worked his way up. So I think if they let him look at that power unit, I think he can find something in there and get some more juice out of it and bring Renault back to being the power unit of choice like it was in the 90s and the early 2000s with Red Bull. I think the other thing that team needs to do is ditch the Alpine marketing and just go back to being called Renault.
I agree.
You know?
Go back to the yellow and black.
Yes.
Go back to the yellow and black Renault.
Because we've got about 5 cars that all look white and blue, or blue and something else.
When Danny Rick drove for him, that car was looked mint on track. That that yellow and
It
black.
stood out.
Great. Yep. And that's what they need. They need to like stand out, be their own.
Or go back to the old Renault colours of the bright blue with a lot of white on it. the old Renault Benetton colours. That'll work with a few splashes of yellow. If you're not going to go back to yellow and black, go with that.
No, yellow and black. Has to be yellow and black.
Has to be yellow and black, yeah.
Uh,
Got
the,
enough blue cars.
the next news item was that Laurent Mekies, who was the racing director at Ferrari, he has formally left the team. He has already been announced that he is going to be Franz Tost's replacement as team principal at AlphaTauri, which is where Laurent Mekies started his career.
He's going to AlphaTauri, did you just say?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah, he's replacing Franz Tost. He is the new team principal
Right.
at AlphaTauri.
That's a good step up.
So Laurent Mekies, he's the guy who's always trying to do a strategy on his busted ass notepad.
Oh, right.
And so he's on his gardening leave. He takes over at the end of the year at AlphaTauri, which will be rebranded as something, but we don't know. I hope they go back to being called Toro Rosso.
Yeah, they need a name change. How
'Cause,
many alphas do we need?
Yeah, that's right. And ditch the ugly colour scheme.
Yeah.
So go back to looking like Red Bull 2.0.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, be a B team.
Or the 2019 livery with that bright blue and the red and the silver Red Bull logo. That
The
was
Chrome Red Bull logo.
yeah. Oh, chrome. What is it about chrome?
Chrome, buddy.
Bring
Chrome.
Chrome is fast.
Chroming.
Chroming.
Give
Swear
me
to God.
more chrome.
Just paint the whole car chrome. Just chrome.
McLaren did that, and it
Paint the
worked.
tyres chrome.
Yeah,
Paint everything chrome. The
Chrome.
driver's chrome.
Rename the team Chrome.
Chrome. Google Chrome.
You can't. That's McLaren's thing.
Oh, they can have it then. All their car, chrome. Fuck the papaya off, chrome. Vodafone down the side, chrome.
Why can't you just have Chrome and papaya instead of Chrome and red? You could literally run that color scheme.
Why do you need papaya? Just chrome.
Yeah, just pure
Whole
silver.
thing.
Why do you need anything but Chrome?
Yeah,
That's all
it's-
you need.
even your drivers wear chrome.
Just
That's it.
reflective.
Yep, that's
the
it.
sun hits it, blinds everyone.
Yep, win races.
Win
Done.
races.
Blinded by science.
Chrome is life. Chrome is love.
But yeah, so Laurent Mekies has left Ferrari. So yeah, well, congratulations, and hope you do well where you are. Next news item is I don't have another next news item.
Nice.
Okay,
Nice one.
right. I did have some other questions, but you know what? This episode has gone for way too fucking long already, so we're going to skip straight to the driver standings. So the driver standings, Max Verstappen is leading the championship by a country mile.
That is devastating lead.
That is more than the next team's entire constructors.
Yeah, that's fucking insane.
And there's
And like, not even to Sergio, but his next actual competitor is Fernando Alonso.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's even further away.
He's doubled his points.
Yeah.
More
So-
than doubled.
So Max Verstappen is leading on 314 goddamn points. Second place is Sergio Perez on 189 points. Third place is Fernando Alonso with 149. How is he still in third?
I have no idea.
Like Lewis Hamilton is fourth with 148 points.
Oh, he
He's
had a good
1
week.
point.
He got, what
Coming
did he
for
get? Fifth?
He got
Yeah.
fifth this weekend.
Yeah, he's
He had a good result. I think that's the
chipping
only
away.
thing that saved him.
Yeah, he's chipping away. In fifth place is Charles Leclerc with 99 points, and he is tied with George Russell, who's also on 99 points. And seventh place is Carlos Sainz with 92 points. In eighth place is Lando Norris with 69 points.
Nice.
Ninth place is Lance Stroll with 47. What the fuck is he still doing in the top 10?
Oh, this is
Because Oscar Piastri was in the top 10 after the sprint race, but since he got crashed out, he's probably 11th now.
Yeah. And rounding out the top 10 is Esteban Ocon with 35 points. There we go to the constructors. With
What they said Monza. They can wrap it up by Monza.
I think they've wrapped it up.
Yeah,
I think they're seriously going to wrap it up by Monza.
I think they're just going to go home for the rest of the season
Yeah.
and just
Just
let the rest
phone
of
it in.
Yeah, yeah.
Just use a remote control car.
They're going to do what I did in F1 and skipped ahead a few seasons, just simulate. Press square to simulate session.
Press X to Jason.
Jason.
Jason. Jason. Red Bull is winning the Constructors with 503 points. Mercedes is in second with 247 points. Aston Martin is in third place with 196 points. Ferrari is in fourth place, nipping at their heels with 191 points. Aston Martin is running a real risk here of dropping down to fourth. This is
that's the battle at the moment. Ferrari, Aston Martin.
Yeah. Fifth place is McLaren with 103 points. They finally hit double digits.
We cracked the triple figures.
Yeah, they're in there. Alpine is in sixth with 57 points. They're in no man's land. They're kind of with Otmar Szfanauers' career.
And then we get to the real battle.
Then we get to the real battle for seventh. Jesus, I had to recount that. Seventh place is Haas with 11 points, tied with Williams on 11 points. In ninth is Alfa Romeo on 9 points, and coming up last is AlphaTauri with 3 points. They got a point this week, so 10 points for them. Right,
Actually, only 1 point for them. But
yeah, true.
Doesn't matter. That's 1 point more than the three teams ahead of them.
yeah, they're gaining ground.
Hee-ho, Ross last.
Yeah,
last best.
Yeah, 1 point for Gryffindor.
1 point for Griffin.
Right, so we're going to be back in 2 weeks with our mid-season special. We're going to do some different stuff this year as opposed to the last stuff because someone, JB, keeps complaining about what we used to do.
Yeah.
So he wanted to do something that was less taxing on his brain.
Yeah. I don't like thinking too much.
Yeah, we know that. Right, so we're going to be back in 2 weeks with our mid-season episode. Please come and join us for that. It's going to be something a bit different.
Good fun.
Social medias, you can check us out on our my YouTube channel, which is Vindicator18. But you can also watch it on our dedicated F1 channel called the F1 Chat 1.
Don't forget the one.
Don't forget the one. You can catch us on the Twitter, which is also the F1 Chat 1.
Don't forget the one, even though it's called X now.
Oh, yeah, X.
It's X.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Elon Musk.
You weirdo.
Does Twitter change its name, has it?
Yeah, it's called X now.
It's X.
Yeah.
It's just a
Because
big
X marks the spot. You can interact with us on Facebook on the F1 Chat.
Yeah.
We are on the Rumble with the F1 Chat.
F1 Chat.
And we're on the Spotify with the F1 Chat. Right, after a very truncated episode.
That was an adventure.
It was an adventure, but it was well worth it. And
Sherbert.
Sherbert flake cone for the win.
yeah, and that guy's back in 2 weeks too.
Is he?
Yeah, he comes by here every 2 weeks.
Oh, well. Be prepared for another break. Another commercial interruption of our mid-season special.
We'd have more commercials than Sky Sports bloody...
Also have diabetes, but that's all right.
No, it's a myth. Diabetes is a myth. Except my mum's got it. But anyway, thank you for tuning in. Sorry about the interruptions, but ice cream is important.
You know who's not sorry about the interruptions? Us.
Yeah. So
you ever seen a grown man run after an ice cream truck for 50 metres down a street?
Or sit on a street corner for 20 minutes waiting for him to show up. While people are driving by, look at us like, what the hell are you doing?
It's a lesson in perseverance, ladies and gentlemen.
It was worth the price of admission.
In the way that McLaren has persevered this year, in the way that
Williams supporters have persevered for a few years.
Since the 90s. In the way us Parramatta fans have persevered since 1986.
No comment.
Sometimes you wait and you get your reward, and sometimes you don't.
It's like that bit at the end of The Dark Knight. Sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded.
Yeah.
But also sometimes the truth isn't good enough.
Yes.
Right. Until then, 2 weeks' time, mid-season special, and then 2 weeks after that is Zandvoort. Until then, thank you for tuning in, and it is goodbye.